You're never gonna believe this, but it's been 2 years. 2 years since we did the Lightfastness test. Let's go check them out. The test samples are upstairs, outside the Hobbit hole where there's a bit more sunlight. I've got 2 samples that are taped to the window that get natural light, and I've got 2 more that sit under fluorescent light. And now we take a short walk down the stairs to the Hobbit hole where I keep the control piece. It's tucked away in a drawer with no light with the rest of my art that I just haven't had a chance to frame yet. And because it hasn't seen any light for the past 2 years, the colors are still as vibrant as when I first painted them. These first 2 are Caran d'Ache watercolor pencils, then Pentel watercolor pencils, Winsor & Newton watercolor markers, Winsor & Newton gouache paints, Holbein's acrylic gouache paints, Liquitex acrylic paints, and a Sharpie. Okay, here's the one that's been sitting under fluorescent light for 2 years. The Caran d'Ache seems to be holding up pretty well. You could see a little bit of fading with the yellow here. But the Pentel watercolor pencils really seem to fade a lot more. Look at the pink here. And the blue Pentel watercolor pencil is fading away dramatically. That's a lot. The Winsor & Newton watercolor markers are fading a bit too. I'm not really a fan of watercolor markers or watercolor pencils, and this is really one of the reasons why. They're just not made for Lightfastness. The Winsor & Newton gouache is holding up fine, which I knew it would. So is the Holbein acrylic gouache and the Liquitex acrylics. Those have really good Lightfastness. Sharpies, on the other hand, are known to not last very long. So I'm not surprised that it's fading like that. Okay, now let's see what the natural light swatches look like. And you can immediately see that that Pentel watercolor pencil blue is almost gone. The Winsor & Newton markers are also fading a little bit, but the rest of them all seem fine. Of course, except for the Sharpie, which predictably faded as well. And here's a look at the swatches as I painted them originally. All of them were painted at the same color. You can see the original at the bottom and the faded ones up at the top. And you can see how well that the Winsor & Newton gouache and the Holbein acrylic gouache held up. And that's because they're a little bit more expensive and they're made to last. That's why professionals use them. Imagine you made a piece of art that you really, really liked and you used cheaper materials and your blues and your pinks faded like this. You'd be really upset, wouldn't you? And that's what the Lightfastness test is for, to show you that not all art materials are made the same, and keeping your artwork in direct sunlight can harm it. Okay, time for the second swatch. This control piece has my favorite Winsor & Newton watercolors, and then some really cheap watercolors that I got off of Amazon, which is nice because we can compare the professional Winsor & Newton to the cheap Amazon brands. Then we have the inks. This is Bombay inks, Higgins Black Magic ink, and then a little bit more Liquitex acrylics. And finally, my favorite Zebra brush pen. Okay, let's see how it compares to, this is the fluorescent light. So this has been sitting under fluorescent light for 2 years. And the Winsor & Newton, the yellow looks great. The purple maybe a little faded. And then Payne's gray seems okay. The cheap watercolors that I got on Amazon, you could definitely see that they're fading a lot more than the professional brands, especially the greens and the blues. The Bombay inks look completely unchanged. And I think that's kind of predictable because I think inks are definitely more light fast. And so is acrylics. Now, I'm a little concerned with this fading for the Zebra brush pen because I use that a lot. Okay, that was the fluorescent light. This is now natural light. This is the ones that were sitting in the window. And I can already tell that these were kind of hit pretty hard. I can see a little bit of fading here with the Winsor & Newton, especially in the purple again. But the Payne's gray seems to be okay. But compared to the cheap Amazon brand, you can definitely see a much bigger difference in how much it's fading. The Bombay inks seem to be okay. I'm not really seeing anything that looks really bad. Same with the Higgins ink and the Liquitex acrylics. The Zebra brush pen, again, not really happy with that. I really like my Zebra brush pens and I want to keep using them, but I'm gonna keep my eye on that because I don't want them to fade over time. Now, a couple things to consider is the ones that are in direct sunlight are behind double pane glass, so they're really blocking a lot of the UV light. And they're also on a window that's west facing, so it's really only seeing sunlight for maybe a few hours a day. And for the fluorescent light test, it's literally sitting under fluorescent lights 24/7, so keep that in mind. This test is really just to show you what happens over a long period of time, maybe 10 or 15 years. I'm cheating it a little bit by exposing them directly to light for long periods of time. And you can absolutely protect your art from fading by keeping them out of direct sunlight, or you can frame them with UV resistant glass. What I do is I keep my art hidden in a drawer until I can afford to get my art framed. But please don't let this light fastness test keep you from putting your art up on your walls, especially if it's not in direct sunlight. Please post your art, be proud of it, fill your walls with it. Nothing we do is permanent in this world, my friend. Art fades away, and that's what makes it so precious, I think. So enjoy your art while it's still vibrant and bold, because tomorrow is still unknown.